MLA.com, Digital Planet, with Gareth Mitchell.
Using data to hold the influential and the criminal to account. We're hearing about grassroots data, and we're talking to those who are harnessing the power of open source investigation.
Next, it's Newsday, here on the BBC World Service, the world's radio station. It's 5 a.m. in London. Hello and welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Bola Masuro and Anna Rahimpour. US and Chinese presidents meet for over 2 hours in talks dominated by warnings over the status of Taiwan. We also have a view from Taiwan on this growing tiff between the US and China. Newsday's Alan Kasuja is in Uganda, hearing how local business owners are responding to the post-COVID market and the pressures of the global economy.
Before COVID, we might be having around 300, and I'm looking at around 150 like that. You can see tables are full often, and it's coming to 2. So that shows that the numbers have reduced kind of. So it is a mess.
Protesters in the Democratic Republic of Congo attacked another UN base overnight. And Isaac will bring us news of the Commonwealth Games now underway in the British city of Birmingham. All that after the latest world news.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. An Iranian human rights group says more than 30 executions have been carried out in the past week. 3 women were executed on Wednesday for killing their husbands. Our Middle East analyst Sebastian Usher has more details.
Iran human rights group says that Sohaila Abadi was hanged in prison several years after she killed her husband, to whom she'd been married when she was 15 years old. Rights groups say that Iran is the biggest executioner of women in the world, most of whom have been found guilty of killing their husbands. Activists say there are reports of domestic violence in many of the cases, but these are not necessarily taken into account in court. In a report released this week, Amnesty International said that Iran is currently carrying out executions at a horrifying pace.
Venezuela and Colombia have announced they have re-established full diplomatic relations when Colombia's left-wing president-elect Gustavo Petro is inaugurated next month. Caracas's foreign minister made the announcement during a meeting with his soon-to-be Colombian counterpart. Will Grant reports.
Gustavo Petro's election win in Colombia was always likely to signal a return to warmer ties with Venezuela. However, that this has happened so quickly after his victory at the polls shows that the leftist president-elect in Colombia represents a far more palatable neighbor for the socialist government in Caracas. Ties worsened 3 years ago after Colombia recognized the then head of the National Assembly, Juan Guaidó, as president, prompting outrage from the administration of President Nicolas Maduro.
Taiwan has thanked President Biden for telling his Chinese counterpart that Washington remained opposed to any action that would change the status of the self-governing island. The foreign ministry in Taipei said it had been briefed by U.S. officials straight after Mr. Biden's 2-hour call with Xi Jinping. A statement said Taiwan would continue to deepen its security partnership with the U.S. The mayor of Washington, D.C. says she has asked for National Guard troops to help deal with thousands of migrants who've been bussed in from Texas and Arizona by Republican governors. Muriel Bowser said the U.S. Capitol was facing a humanitarian crisis. Here's Charles Hopkins.
Since the spring, the governors of Texas and Arizona have been running politically driven programs that they say have bussed more than 7,000 new arrivals to Washington, D.C. The Texas Governor Greg Abbott says this is because the Biden administration has failed to secure the Mexican border. The White House accuses Republicans of using migrants as political pawns. Washington's Democratic Mayor, Muriel Bowser, says the city is struggling to deal with the arrivals. She wants National Guard troops to help bring the incomers to a processing center and find them new destinations. But some community groups have accused the mayor of militarizing a problem that demands an essentially humanitarian response.
BBC News. Demonstrators have targeted a United Nations base in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo amid worsening protests against the UN. At least 2 other peacekeeping bases were also targeted on Thursday. Here's Emmanuel Agunza.
The situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo remains tense and fragile nearly a week since anti-UN protests began. Late Thursday, protesters threw petrol bombs at the UN base in Boikene in Beni. Casualty figures were not immediately clear.
A UN spokesman told reporters that Mai combatants had joined protesters in Butembo in what is seen as a serious escalation of the attacks against UN bases in the North Kivu province. The protest began on Monday with people accusing the UN peacekeepers of failing to protect civilians against armed groups operating in the east of the country.
The U.S. State Department says an American delegation has met Taliban officials to discuss how to release frozen funds from Afghanistan's central bank